Yeah, so this is like my fourth or fifth time trying to record this. So what I decided to do is I'm going to split it up in parts just to keep my thoughts organized and regimented. So hi, my name is Brandon for the fourth time in a row. I have a hoodie on because I don't have a haircut. Uh, I have cerebral palsy. I'm 30 years old and I live in Florida. And this is gonna be part one called growing up with me. So, in the beginning, it all started in 1993 in a hospital in Chicago, Illinois that I don't know the name of. And I was born a preemie baby, a pound and a half at birth. And I, from what my mom has told me, I had to be in an incubator for a few months before I could come home. And I eventually grew up into this. But growing up, I grew up in a single parent. I grew up in a single parent household. I grew up with my mom and my grandparents. My mom and my dad, they aren't together. And for the longest time when I was younger, when I would see when I would see kids with their mom and their dad, I would kind of quietly ask myself, how come my parents can't be that way? How come my parents can't, you know, be together and take care of me? And how come every time they see each other there's like this tension? Although when I was a kid I didn't know how to describe it as tension. As a kid, you know, when situations like that happen, you kind of feel it, even though you don't know how to describe what it is because you're a kid. But other than that, growing up was pretty normal. Even though I had cerebral palsy and I had to go, to countless hours of therapy and surgeries and all this other stuff that you wouldn't deem as normal. That was my normal. So when people ask, "Oh, how is it growing up with cerebral palsy? How is it this? How is it having use crutches or use braces or this that and the third?" Like, it's hard for me to describe because I've lived with it for my whole life. You don't ask a It's like asking a blind person what it's like to be blind. They can't really explain it. It just is, and they live with it how they live with it. But growing up, it was pretty normal. I did normal kid things. I played outside. I played outside, played sports, went to school, crushes on girls, all that sort of stuff. But growing up, it was especially growing up in especially growing up when I was younger, having cerebral palsy. When you're younger, like, because the kids are just starting to get to know you. Everybody got treated the same. Everybody got treated the same. We were all cool. We'd all go over to each other's houses. But I didn't start to notice a shift in how people saw me, or I didn't like. I always knew I had cerebral palsy from the moment from for as long as I can remember, but I didn't realize that it was a thing that people saw was different until I got to I got to middle school and I had my second surgery. That's when I started to notice, the same people last year when I was in like fifth grade or sixth fifth or sixth grade, or I fifth or sixth grade, depending on actually, yeah, when I had my surgery the first time, it was in sixth grade, and then I ended up having to do sixth grade twice. That's a whole nother. I'll get into that in the next part. But I didn't really notice a shift until after my surgery I had when I was in middle school, and it went from, oh Brandon, you want to play football, to where, to, oh Brandon, you want to play football, to, I don't know if you should play. We have enough people. You can be referee, or or we have enough people. It's cool. You can you can just sit and watch. And I didn't really understand that, one, they were trying to, make sure I didn't get hurt, but also at the same time, we're becoming teenagers at that point. Teenage hormones and all that stuff kicks in, and then when they see something that's different, or when they realize there's something that's different, it's kind of like, whoa, I don't I don't know how to handle this, so I'm just gonna, just act like a certain type of, I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but yeah, that's pretty much what it was like. And then, growing up, I went to the neighborhood middle school, had everybody that was trans, but it's like, things for me growing up didn't shift until I left that middle school and ended up going to a private school for my 8th grade year. And during that time, it was very, very difficult for me. During those few years that I was at the couple years that I was at the first private school, it was very difficult for me because a couple of weeks before I ended up going to that school, I ended up losing my grandfather to cancer. Rest in peace. I ended up losing him to cancer. So that, on top of switching to another school, was a lot for me because I was still grieving, even though I didn't really know how to grieve. Like, I wasn't sad in the sense that I was crying every day, but I was still kind of, trying to process that whole situation, and then having to go to a new school with no one I really knew just kind of threw everything off for me mentally. And not only that, I have to get to know new people who don't know that I have a disability, because everybody I went to middle school with before were people I grew up with in elementary school. So they knew I had a disability, and if anybody tried to mess with me, one of them would step in and it wouldn't be an issue. I didn't have that going into this new school. So I didn't have that, and I was kind of like, aside from a few kids I ended up, being friends with, I was kind of the odd man out. And I ended up getting bullied a lot. So that was a lot to deal with. And I know some people are probably gonna watch this like, "What, you got bullied? You got bullied? Well, you never really showed or said anything about it." And yeah, I didn't. I didn't because I didn't want to cause I didn't want to cause I didn't want to cause issues. And also, I didn't want, my mom or my dad to like overly worry about me or anything. So I did what any kid around that age would do, was I just kept it in. I gritted it. I bared through it. And after 2 years, I ended up switching. And after I think it was either 2 years or 1.5 years, we ended up switching to another private school because the first private school I went to got shut down. And during that time, uh, that was around, my high school times, because middle school, you're starting to find out who you are, but like in high schools, where you're trying to, like, you're starting to try to find out who you are in middle school, but in high school, it's when I would say kids try to understand who they're probably gonna, well, not really understand, but like try to find out to understand who they're going to be like for the rest of their lives. And for me, it was kind of difficult because one, I was getting bullied, so that led to, a whole bunch of that led to self confidence and self esteem issues and all these other things. But I never felt like I could talk. I never felt like I could talk about it because I didn't think people would understand. Because I didn't think people would understand, and I didn't want to worry anyone. So obviously, I dealt with it. I bared through it, and even though there were some days where I was just like, you know what, like I don't even want to go. I don't even want to go to the school anymore. I want to go to I want to go back to public school and all this other stuff. And I remember bringing up to my mom like, yeah, I want to go back to public school. And she would always say, well, I don't want you to go back to public school because, then you would have to get an aid and it'd be difficult for you to walk and all this other stuff, which I completely understood. Because, well, now I completely understand. At the time, I didn't. Because, you're a teenager and, it's, well, you don't, when you're a teenager, you constantly think, well, parents don't understand me. I know everything. I'm 15 years old. You don't know what, you really don't know shit, excuse my language, at 15. You think you do because you think you've experienced a lot, but you really haven't in the grand scheme of things. So, again, like I was saying, I grit through it. I gritted through it. I bared it for another year and a half. And then I ended up leaving that school and going to a school where I felt I felt perfectly at home, which is where I felt perfectly at home. Like everybody I met in that school was cool. My teacher was nice. Teacher was nice. I ended up meeting a couple people that I still stay in contact with this day. Shout out William Clark and Jake Cordero and Josh Cordero and everybody else I'm forgetting to mention, but shout out to those people. They were in school. Those were some of my closest friends in school. So, go through that whole situation. I end up graduating, getting valedictorian student of the year and all that sort of stuff. So that's what it was like going through my high school years. And then just to circle back a little bit to, me growing up. Me growing up again when I was younger in the neighborhood. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends in the neighborhood. Most of them are gone. But two friends in particular are like my brothers at this point. And that's Hardy Chin and Nathan Anglin. You've probably seen the interview with me and Hardy on my channel before. I'm still trying to get Nathan to sit down and do an interview, but he has been ducking me forever. Yes, Nathan, I'm calling you out. I want to sit down and do an interview with you. But yeah, those two they're like my brothers, and they've seen me through the good times and the really, really bad times and the in between times. And without them at certain points, I don't know if I'd be able to get through some of the stuff that I've went through. And I just want to say thank you to them for being there for me whenever I need them, because we speak almost damn near every day. And we can vent to each other. We call each other out when we're slipping on stuff in terms of life. And when one of us is on that BS, we know how to keep each other in check. So I wanted to say thank you thank you to them, because they've been with me through so much. And yeah, so anyway, fast forward to after that, dealing with all the bullying in school and everything. I didn't feel like I could go and I could really talk to anyone. So like I was saying, it led to a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem issues. I didn't really, but on the outside you would never tell, because I'm naturally an introverted person. But when I would go to school, I would become more of an introvert. I would become more of an introvert, as to not, I didn't want to let my true self show, because I felt like if I did, I would be judged for it. So I became more of an introvert in that sense. Which now looking back at it, it was kind of dumb on my part, but at the same time, it really wasn't, because as a teenager, you don't really know how to deal with those complex emotions. So yeah, that was my high school and my middle school. Yeah, but the one thing that I felt really affected me mentally was after I went to technical school. After a year after I graduated, I went to technical school for a year. I second in my class. Graduated second in my class. Um, almost just I would have gotten the student of the year as well in that class, but there was a math test I needed to pass, and I didn't end up passing it until towards the end of the year. So, but but what really affected me mentally was after I graduated, I went to um, go attend Broward College. And for people who live in Broward, Broward College is, the local community college, and I was going to go there after I graduated from technical school. And it was last day to register for classes and everything, and all they needed was my high school transcripts. So I go to get my high school transcript from the private school I graduated from, gave them my high school transcripts, and for whatever reason, they couldn't log the transcripts in on the upstairs computer. So I went to the downstairs computer in the financial office with the financial lady, and then she asked for my school's phone number. I gave them my school's phone number, and long story short, she pretty much told me I couldn't go to school because all 4 years of my high school career was basically for nothing, because the school wasn't accredited. And that affected me a lot. That affected me so much, because not only did I work really hard to graduate, I graduated from technical school with college credits. So I would have had my associate's degree in at least a year, and I would have been able to transfer and go to an actual university and then get my bachelor's in less time. But the reason it affected me mentally was because I had worked so hard, only to be told on the last day, I can't go because of these outside circumstances. And it affected me a lot as well, because my mom was the one who put me in those private schools. So mentally, I shifted all my anger towards her, and I started blaming her for everything. And it's like started blaming her for everything about how this was her fault and X, Y, and Z and 1, 2, 3, and and I don't think she actually I know she doesn't know this because I've never told her, so she's probably gonna see this and be like, why didn't you tell me before? I didn't feel like I could tell you. That's why I didn't tell you, but I essentially felt like she ruined. Sorry, this is difficult for me, having to think about this when it comes to things that are difficult for me to talk about. I try not to think about them and just lock them away, which I shouldn't do. Which mentally is not okay. But I essentially felt that she ruined my life and everything that happened to me for the next 2 years, with me being super depressed about everything, and you know, not leaving the house and not being able to get a job. I put all that blame on her, and I shouldn't have, because she was only doing what she thought was best as a parent. And I want to use this time to apologize, and and basically say I shouldn't have done that, and you only did what you thought was best. So, but yeah, we're gonna stop that there. That was part one. Part two will be coming soon. I'm not sure when, but that was part one. Basically, you know, my school life, what it was like growing up a little bit, and then part two will be, you know, basically part two would pretty much be what it's like for me mentally dealing with cerebral palsy and all other sorts of things that I have to deal with mentally. So thank you guys for watching, and peace.